Hi, how you doing? And welcome back to another video on the channel. I just wanted to get my thoughts out there regarding double game week 22 and a wildcard team for the next few game weeks. You might not be wildcarding, but sometimes I feel like these videos hopefully help you in terms of making transfer decisions as well, as we're going to highlight a couple of players that we think are going to get in. You're probably already aware that there's a double game week this game week with Man United and Leeds, and then there's another double in 23 with Arsenal and Man City. And after that double, it kind of calms down a bit. Apart from a Newcastle and Brighton blank in game week 25, there's definitely something to plan for. You very well might have triple Newcastle and a Brighton player in your squad at the moment, or you might want them in your wild card. And in regards to game week 25, I definitely wouldn't free hit, but I would maybe plan to have a bit of a deeper bench or use the odd transfer to transfer someone out. But that being said, if the player you're transferring out for this blank game week in 25, you're just going to want back in again, I wouldn't waste those transfers. You got to think each transfer is essentially worth 4 points, as that's what it would cost you if you didn't have a free transfer. Um, and it's this blank game week isn't that big a deal, even though nearer the time people might make it seem that way. So I think if you can ride it out, it is worth still considering Newcastle and Brighton players. As long as you don't have like six of them, I think you could get away with two, even three players, and just fill in your bench of those players for one game week. So it is important to bear that in mind. Anyway, let's get into the video, and we're going to start with some underrated options. So when I say underrated, it doesn't mean that you necessarily need to get them in immediately, and you've probably already heard of some of them anyway and are considering having them in your team if you're not already. But underrated to me is like less than 10%, around 10%, because 10% of ownership is still, 9 out of 10 fantasy league players don't have them in the team. So that's a huge amount of people that don't have them and that you could gain rank on. So we're going to start with David De Gea, and whilst you could maybe get someone like Martinez for 4.5 million, I do think there's some good defensive options out there. I think in terms of having a goalkeeper, Man United's fixtures do look pretty good from a defensive point of view moving forward. He's still only 10% owned, and under 5 mil, I think he's a good shout for any goalkeeper. Next, we've got Kyle Walker, and whilst his minutes have been super inconsistent, he is only 4.8 million. And Man City have just got rid of Cancelo over to Bayern Munich, so I do think that that is somebody that you could consider. Only 4% owned away into Man City's defence, and Man City are the sort of team that can start churning out results, getting clean sheets. They go into that sort of machine-like approach where they just, keep going and going and going. And that winning mentality that they've got, yeah, they've got Spurs and Arsenal, but to me, Spurs aren't that bigger threat really. They can be quite inconsistent, and that Arsenal game could go either way. And apart from that, even Newcastle are not scoring loads of goals. So I really do think a Man City defender like Kyle Walker is quite underrated. Someone who shouldn't be underrated is Bruno Fernandes. Now, less than 10% owned, I think is ridiculous. I think if you have any transfers this game week, I think you should absolutely prioritize getting Bruno in. You've probably already got Rashford if you're still playing the fantasy league at the moment and keeping up to speed with things regularly. But I think Bruno is somebody that is getting those attacking returns. He's got a double game week immediately, but those fixtures afterwards, like we said with the here, are still pretty good. So he would not only be my underrated option because he's less than 10% owned, I would make him my priority option in terms of getting a transfer in. Next, we've got Nketiah. Now, obviously, this is with that double game week in 23 in mind. Like I said, that Man City game could go either way. And he's somebody that's been talked about quite a lot. He has started scoring more recently, but he's still only 6.5% owned. And I think, in my own personal team, I did a straight swap from Martial to Nketiah because of the same price. I think as long as Jesus is out, he's probably going to start. Arsenal are top of the league and the scoring goals. So it's a great value, low risk option for me. So on to the wildcard team we go. And I think it's worth noting that we've obviously got the hearing goal, but there's no point getting double game week players if they're just going to be on the bench. I think we've had a talk about Leeds at the moment and their double game week, but I do think that you know if I'm going to put Leeds player in and he's just going to be on my bench, if I've got a better starting 11, there's no real point making and forcing that transfer in. In the defence, we've got Rico Henry. Now, he is a very underrated option for Brentford. Obviously, Brentford don't have clean sheets on the go, but they do have some good fixtures coming up. and I think they do rotate reasonably well with the other defenders that we've got in the team. Obviously, we've got a double Newcastle defence, and that's something to keep an eye on in terms of that blank in game week 25. But I think as long as you can get out three defenders, I think usually think like the scope and ceiling for defenders' points is quite overrated. I actually don't think if your defender is getting 2 points a game week, I think if you look back through your history of game weeks, more often than not, your defender's getting 2 points or even 1 point, unless they are Newcastle. But that's kind of a remove from this because nobody will have Newcastle clean sheets that game week. So everyone is in the same boat. And so really it's like if you can get one out of your three defenders having a clean sheet in game week 25, I think that's pretty good. Moving on to the onto the midfield, and we've got Odegaard and Saka as a double up. Now, obviously, we've got game week 23 in mind here, and I think they are both performing really well. Arsenal's fixtures look good in the medium term. And like I say, I've got the double up in Man United as well with Bruno, and I am captaining. Well, I would captain Rashford this game week. I think if you've still got your triple captaincy, you would absolutely be within your rights to triple captain Rashford as well. I think they're two great fixtures. Having a double game week with both games at home, I think is fantastic. Into the attack, and we've got Nketiah, and we've obviously got Haaland as well. I think, like De Bruyne, Haaland is somebody that you would absolutely need to have in your team. I think if I didn't have De Bruyne or Fernandes, I would definitely get Fernandes in ahead of De Bruyne, but I wouldn't transfer De Bruyne out for Fernandes, if that makes sense, because I'm just going to want De Bruyne for the double game week in 23. Now, onto the bench, and this bench has game week 25 in mind because West Ham have Nottingham Forest at home and Man City have Bournemouth away. And I do think that those are two defenders I would absolutely be fine bringing in for that game week and subbing out the Newcastle defenders. And I think I could ride game week 25, and then these lads probably get back on the bench. I think Rico Henry is somebody that could come out as well on the regular game weeks, and Kyle Walker, if he starts more often, can go in. But I do think that's a pretty well-rounded team with that blank game week in mind. Um, but like I say, the blank game week's not the biggest thing in the world. This team also covers all the doubles. You've got triple Man United. You're going to have triple Arsenal for their double and triple Man City for their double. But also those teams are pretty good in terms of their fixtures in the mid future and maybe even the long term future as well. So let me know what you think about the team. Have I missed somebody out? Is there any mistakes you think I've made? Thank you so much for all the support, getting tons of likes on the videos, and obviously, like we say, having over 50 subscribers, I just think is really cool. So thank you so much for all of that, and I will see you in the next one.